This is a special report short. Roll the clip. Ask Judge what will happen if Trump is impeached.
He won't be.
There it is. And another question. Why is there such a big
Well, let me put it this way. He might be impeached, but an impeachment is like an indictment. That doesn't mean you're going to get convicted. And guess who tries the case? The U.S. Senate. And do you think this U.S. Senate is going to have 2/3 of its members voting to convict Trump?
No, absolutely
not. Do you
not.
know how many successful impeachments there have been of any level official in the history of the United States?
I don't know.
4.
Just 4?
In 240 years, there have been just 4. Wow. See, Johnson, who succeeded Abraham Lincoln, was impeached by the House, but the Senate wouldn't convict him. Clinton got impeached by the House, but the Senate wouldn't convict him. Now, do you think this majority Senate, Republican majority Senate, is going to convict Trump and lose all of the support from the rank and file in the red zone? Ain't going to happen. No. And the other stuff is, you see, I recognize from my Soviet professor, this is just a propaganda methodology. The left has adopted the old-time Nazi right-wing methodology, which is falsely accused or justly accused. It does not make any difference, your opponent, because if you tell a lie long enough and loud enough, you can get anybody to believe it. And people swear by he's wrong, they got all this stuff on him to impeach. They don't have a damn thing on him. You see, there is one other thing, too. You may not like what he does, but not liking what a president does not consist of, quote, high crimes and misdemeanors committed in office, which are the only basis for impeachment.
Correct.
See, everything they're accusing him of is supposed to have transpired before he took office.
So it wouldn't even technically apply.
Yeah, and then if you want to talk about impeachment, you have to say, well, he conspired with Russia to influence the election. Well, it works out that Ronald Reagan and his administration allegedly conspired with the Iranians.
Iran-Contra.
No, to keep the hostages until he won.
Yes.
So that Carter wouldn't win.
Right, he would look weak and ineffective. I remember
so
that.
There is a precedent that kind of meddling is okay. And they love St. Ron the Raygun, R-A-Y, separate word, G-U-N.
I have another question for you from the chat room. Ask Judge Brown, hold on, I have a question. Why is there such a big deal for the U.S. government to give descendants of slaves reparations like the so-called Jews and Japanese got?
Well, let's put it this way. If any category or class of people deserves reparations, it's American descendants of slaves or slavery. There is one pragmatic problem. How do you make that determination of the class that's entitled?
Yeah, like what if a guy came over during the 40s after World War II?
Well, aside from that, there is a little problem. Every one of the former Confederate states had, up until the 1930s, statutes on their books that read something like, if any person presumed to otherwise be colored can demonstrate through 2 witnesses to his character and through his ancestry that he has no more than 1/4, 1/8, 1/16 colored ancestry, he shall be entitled to a decree by a chancellor or judge of this state to a decree of official Caucasian status.
What exactly are they saying? They're turning like mulattoes.
In other words,
whites?
If you had no more than, depending upon the state, Arkansas it was 1/4, Tennessee it was 1/8, Louisiana was 1/16, if you had no more than that known ancestry, you were entitled to be declared Caucasian if you looked like you were white.
See, that's the mess. That's the stuff that's killing this country. That's been killing it.
Now, you know why they had that?
Why?
You know why they had that? The richest people left in the South had lost their legitimate sons during the Civil War. So when they died, all of their money would, quote, it's cheap to the state. In other words, it would go to the state. So they had children by slave mistresses, sometimes a very barely small percentage of black slave mistresses that they'd spent a lot of money buying. So they wanted to legitimate those children and take the infirmity from them. Now, there is a movie that is historically accurate. It's called The Free State of Jones. It concerns some things that occurred down in Mississippi during the Civil War, and right after. There was this guy named Jones who stood up for the slaves and former slaves. He got them registered to vote. He organized them in the military units so they could fight back the Klan and all this other stuff. Well, one of these close to being white former slaves had a child by him, and he recorded it in his diary. In 1947, this white man married a white woman, and some local Mississippi officials had him charged with the felony of miscegenation by marrying this white woman, and they claimed that he was part colored. Well, this was past that point where anyone with any known colored ancestry will be declared colored for purposes of this statute after they had that. If you had no more than such and such percentage of known colored ancestry, you're entitled to be declared Caucasian. Well, this guy had never been declared Caucasian, and somebody had stumbled on the old diary of this man Jones from back in the Civil War era, where he said that he had the child named so-and-so by this former slave named so-and-so, and the child of this child was in fact the father of this individual. So they convicted him and sentenced him to 10 years. Well, what happened is the Mississippi Supreme Court vacated the conviction because the U.S. Supreme Court was going to grab the case, and they thereby made it moot, and the Mississippi authorities didn't want the U.S. Justice Department under Harry Truman getting involved in Mississippi state business.
Wow.
But it talks about all of this. So you have this situation of there are quite a number of what are now presumed to be whites who were known colored by their ancestry at one point, but who got official court decrees of Caucasian status. They changed the law, but you can't have a bill of attainder under American constitutional law, which causes someone to be criminalized by something that was not a crime when it occurred, or outlaw them. So this is called outlawing them if you made them once again colored after being declared Caucasian. So the statutes read, any person not heretofore declared Caucasian under the predecessor to the immediate status statute will be considered colored if they have any known colored ancestry. Right. Then a few years later it said anyone not Caucasian with any known colored ancestry, etc. Then it said any person with any known colored ancestry will be declared colored for purposes of this statute, or considered colored for purposes of this statute. So you have a lot of white folk that have as much black ancestry in them as those who did not get declared white and who were here with ancestors, through their ancestors, from the slavery times to Reconstruction to Jim Crow to segregation. there is argument under reparations that the discrimination they suffered during segregation would qualify. And they are more interested in doing that because that would let more people in. Now, people like Barack Obama or Kamala Harris would qualify. Maybe that's why they weren't interested in pushing it.
Hey everybody, thank you for watching the video. This is True Power is Mine. As always, live your life with integrity, without hate, without envy, and or greed. Peace. Also, support me on Patreon. Patreon /join/TruePowerIsMine. I'm out of here.